conversation is, how do we build a wall, basically, I won't call it a wall, a community of podcasting that determines how podcasters will be treated in Africa by anyone coming in now, you know? So that it's like, if anyone comes in, it doesn't matter what part of the wall you hit, we all have the same messaging, we all have, if it's our creators are going to be paid, this is how much our creators are going to be paid, and this is the minimum, and it doesn't matter who you talk to, that's the conversation across the board. I feel like podcasting has the ability to be the thing that unites us, because we're not uniting on an idea or something like that, we're uniting on storytelling, which is the one thing that is absolutely uniquely African. So it's the one thing that, as an African, doesn't matter which part of the continent you're on.
Create your life. Africa X.
Beautiful people, this is the Create Your Life series, and you are listening to Africa X, which is our special series focused on conversations and experiences with experts from Africa, in Africa, about Africa. And I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown. Today we are honored to have this esteemed, serious, phenomenal woman who is a Kenyan native. Look at her, basking in her glory. The ultimate podcast community builder in Africa, with more than 4 years of experience in the African podcasting industry. She is the community manager at Afripods, Go Team, a Pan-African podcast hosting and distribution platform. And she's all about creating spaces for African podcasters to connect and grow the African podcasting ecosystem. I am talking about none other than Miss Gathoni Ngumba. Gathoni, please say hello to the Create Your Life family.
Hey everybody, how are you doing?
We are well.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, definitely. It's been a long time coming. I'm so excited to be back in the studio recording and to be here with you. So Gathoni, I got a lot of questions for you. You know, you're doing your thing with community building, and I've had the opportunity to witness you and watch you grow and even be a part of your evolution. So I want to jump right in. First question out the gate. You're a veteran in the African podcasting ecosystem. Please tell the Create Your Life family how you got started in the podcasting industry, because you have a journalism background as well as photography and, you know, video production. So how did you get in the game?
So I stumbled into podcasting. I feel like I hadn't planned it. I didn't know it existed. Well, I knew it existed because I listened to podcasts. But what happened is my friend was like, I know someone who's looking for someone to do social media. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let me meet the guy. And I meet the guy, and it was one of the founders of Afripods. And that's how I got into the space. So I came in doing social media, and me being myself, I was like, oh wait, this other thing needs to get done. And then I started talking to podcasters, and then I started talking to people in the industry, and a lot of people in the space like Melissa and Josephine I've known for a really long time. So it was just getting into the space and finding people who I already know, Dana said, all of these people who I've known in different walks of life who just happened to be in the space, and then we grew together. So I stumbled into it is really how it happened. Social media brought me here.
Hey, I love to hear that. Social media brought me here.
Yeah, social media. Thank you, Instagram.
Shouts out to the gram.
Yeah.
Okay, well, because you have this great vantage point of being, you know, in the game earlier on, what are like 3 things that you see working in Africa versus other places in regards to just podcasting in the industry, period?
I think we're really good at collaboration. I had the opportunity to go like for PM and things like that, and if you're listening,
what's PM? I'm sorry.
Podcast movement. I'm sorry, yeah.
Right.
I'm like the people who I'm in the room with someone who's in podcasting, so you forget sometimes. But yeah, so podcast movement, and a lot of the conversation with like the Black community or the Latinx community, or these people are not feeling like they're part of it, or how do we get into that space? How do we invite them? And I feel like podcasting is a space where we have figured out how people in South Africa, people in Egypt, people in West Africa, us guys in East Africa are finding a way to build the ecosystem together. So there's a lot of collaboration, I feel, that is not necessarily typical in a lot of spaces. And it's really exciting to see it happen, because especially for me who's in community, being able to work with people from different spaces, and everyone's receptive. We're not yet at the space where it's like, it's my thing, I don't want to share or something like that. So the collaboration is one thing that I think is different. I think also something that's different is the growth or the potential for growth. Because if you think about like vernacular, if you think about all the stories that haven't been told yet. A lot of people, if you talk to people in the creative industry, they're like, all the stories that need to be told have been told. But then as an African, I know there's so many stories that haven't been told. There's stories like I found out, I used to listen to like Anansi the Spider, you know what I mean? And it's stories we grew up with that no one else knows. And it's things like that if we're able to get like those stories told, and you see now podcasting becoming into movies and things like that, I think there's such potential for growth of the industry, but not only podcasting, but for storytellers and creators on African continent. So I think that's something different. And third thing, I feel like the rest of it is I think will take people by surprise is the third thing. I feel like a lot of times in spaces, Africa is the underdog. And I feel like this is the one time I feel like we're gonna win.
You can like, level the playing field, right?
I don't even think level. I think it's gonna be like, in the movies when it's like the time when the good guys are down and then someone comes in, Optimus Prime, and it's just like they win, but like really win. I think it's gonna be one of those things. So I feel like it's our time to really shine as a continent, because our thing has always been stories. So being able to shine on our terms in our space, I think is really exciting. Waiting to see it happen is really exciting for me. So yeah.
So you said something that I thought was important. You said, people feel like these stories have been told, but so many stories that haven't been told. Why do you think that it's so important for Africans to tell their own stories as opposed to how things have been done now? I have my own theory, but I would love to hear it from you who's, grown up on the continent.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Everywhere I normally put, I feel like Africa's stories should be told by the people who know her best, which is the Africans. I feel like for a long time, we have been told our story. We have been told our narrative. The world has decided who we are, and then it's been fed to us. And I think for the first time, it's a chance for us to actually take control of the narrative, learn from the narrative. I know some people in West Africa who are using podcasting to like teach languages, like our local languages. So it's not only a space to teach, learn, share, it's also a space to like hold our history, but on our terms. Things like, so as a Kenyan, for example, for the Mau Mau and the fighters, it was always, they fought in the forest, this is what happened. It's like a little clip, like one line in history, but then you're not told about the concentration camps, you're not told about all of these things. And it takes me being in my 20s, 30s to find out that we had concentration camps in the same way that we learn about like Western history and they had concentration camps and all of that. But why isn't it being told to us the same way? If it's slave trade, it's West Africa had slave trade, but we had slave trade as well. We have the caves like in Mombasa, and if you go, you're able to like go through and see what it is the trade did. But where are those stories? Where are those stories being told? How do I make sure my child gets to hear that story as well? And because sometimes I feel like the lessons that we can learn as Africans are in first understanding who we were as a people, and then learning how to grow from that. And I think that's the opportunity telling our own stories presents, where we're able to know what we were, pick what we want from it, and then evolve from that as well, but with an attachment to who we were before like colonialism and everything. Not trying to be like the African who brings up, we were colonized, but in that sense, I think there's an opportunity for ownership.
I love that, the opportunity for ownership. And even me living in Kenya 2 years, you just taught me something about the caves and things like that. I didn't know that about Mombasa, right? So now when I go to Mombasa, I want to actually go and check it out and kind of see what the history is. And for those who are not familiar, can you tell us a little bit more about the Mau Mau fighters?
So the Mau Mau is basically our freedom fighters. So in history, we were taught that they were bad people who, well, not really. They're the ones who saved us. I use quotation marks from the colonialists, from the British colonialists. But that's who they were. In Kenya, it's the Mau Mau. We hear about the Maji Maji rebellion in Tanzania and all of this. So it's just, in our heads, it's like, it almost feels like folk tales. It feels like something that happened, but you can't it's not tangibly seeable or something like that, in as much as some of us like have grandparents who were part of the fighting and everything. But I feel like there's no space for understanding, for example, the brokenness of our grandfathers or why our fathers turn out the way they are, where they're like macho and you can't cry and you can't do this. But you see, if they were brought up with a man who had to survive in a certain place, and then your father's brought up with that, so then you understand who he is, and it's able to heal, like, the generation. And it sounds very fluffy, but it feels like to me, that's how important our stories are. If we're able to tell the stories of understanding the Mau Mau and why they are, when they were running in the forests, when those communities that used to put out like food for them because it was illegal to help them, but certain communities would put out like pots of food at night so that they'd come out of the forest and just find food and then run back into the forest. Like understanding those intricate systems that other communities played in helping the people who are actually fighting, or understanding what the spies were like, the women who were spies running between the forests and the villages and everything, giving the information, understanding what those stories were like also. I think that's like the space now the Mau Mau play. But yeah, those are the stories I want to hear.
Okay. No, I'm loving it.
That's
Actually,
the stories I want to hear. I want to be like, if you go like to the coast, there's the people who walk you through like the caves. If I could get that guy to record a podcast where he's like, okay, when you enter this room, this is what, and I want you to be able to imagine what like the cave is getting smaller, and this is like a 6 foot tall man who has to bend over, and then you have 100 people in a room that's probably a quarter of what we're in now, which is not that big, and being able to sit, this is how many people were dying when this is happening, this is how this, if you can get people to see that through like audio, it would be magical, right?
No, it would, especially, being very descriptive.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from you is you're saying that, podcasting, and this is one of my favorite things, so I'm kind of putting my stuff on you, but I feel like podcasting on the continent is a way to preserve traditions, languages, stories,
And
right?
history, right?
And history in an authentic way so that the future generation can still have an authentic African story, an authentic African experience, no matter where they move, by, being able to rely on history told by those whose history it is.
And from their perspective.
Right.
Because I feel like our history is told, but not from our perspective.
Right.
So I know about Mau Mau, but from what I have been taught about them, not from what they said about them. I want to hear it from their side as well. I think there's an opportunity for that, for our side of the story to be told. Because every story has two sides.
Yeah.
I feel like one has gotten the narrative for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think it's time for the other one to come on board.
Love that. Love that. Okay. So my next question for you is being in the podcast game for so long, how have you seen it change over the time that you've been in it?
Oh, wow. A lot has changed. Things like the size of community. It's that there are communities across the continent that are actually just for podcasters. The Z Pod Hub in Zambia, you have Niger Pod Hub. APVA is also building a community. There's the database that like Africa Podfest has. You see Podfest Cairo, Africa Podfest being able to do a virtual conference. There's so much that's happening. Networks like GCR and Semabox and Gold Coast Trip, Solid Gold, all of these things coming into play. It feels like the industry has grown really fast in a really short time. If you're talking about like even now from Afripods, the number of podcasts we're getting every week signing on, it's the number of streams we're getting even. It feels like everything, it seems small, but even in those tiny little things, I don't have to go, my conversations have changed from being what is a podcast to how can I market or how can I monetize? It's just like, oh wait, so you already know what a podcast is or where to host. And so the conversations, even in those spaces, changing. Some of the changes I've seen tiny but appreciated and let me know that there will be growth, or seeing at Podcast Movement Africa having panels, or having sessions. It's things like that where there's recognition beyond our small little spaces. It's not us trying to figure out what we'll do. There's also an international recognition of the African market, and welcoming of the African market as well. So all of that is changes I've seen in 4 years, when even media houses being able to have podcasts. I'm like that we're having conversations now with big media houses being like, we have a podcast this week, next week, radio stations, all of that is change that has happened really fast in a really short time, and it makes me really excited for anything else coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch it up a little bit and ask you, for the creator who's out there like, hey, I need to make a community for my pod, or we need to grow, or I'm thinking about jumping in the game. What are 3 things that you would give to a new podcaster who's looking to grow their following and community? 3 tips.
Number 1 would be authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I realize a lot of people attach to is the personality. So I have a podcast with my sisters, and a lot of the feedback we get is, I really relate to this one. Oh, I remember the time that this happened and I felt like this person. Or I felt like, you see, it's a lot more about who you are as a person. So if you're not able to put in who you are as a person, I feel like you'll have a problem building community, because a lot of the community in the podcast will be attached to who you are. So authenticity is very important.
Love that.
So figure out who you are, and don't put on, because you have to put on for a really, really long time.
Right. That's a fact.
Because as it grows, then you have to become the new person. So if you're not ready to be the new person, just figure out how to love yourself before you start your podcast. I think understand what it is you want from your podcast, because understanding what you want from it would help you figure out what type of community you want and how you want it to grow. Right? So say if I want to build a community that will go for lives, I know how to build based on what it is I'm doing for my podcast and the direction I want to go, and how to get an audience that would eventually go to lives. Maybe I'll have to go towards like the 25 to 35-year-old audience so that they can pay for the tickets, you know what I mean? But I need to understand what it is I want from the podcast in order to understand how to create the community for it.
Okay. And when you're saying live, sorry to cut you off, when you're saying live, you mean live events?
Yeah,
right?
like live events. So
okay,
if I decide, say me and my sisters decide we want to do a live event,
Yeah.
can we pull a crowd?
I'm waiting for
Oh
that.
man, no pressure, but yeah, can we pull the crowd? Would they be able to pay the tickets? What's the price? Because you see, if my audience is 18 to 25, then pricing becomes a different thing than if my audience, like how we've seen some ticket prices is a conversation with a concert in Kenya.
Right.
Like how ticket prices are expensive, so it's who's my crowd, and can they pay that VVIP pricing? Or if I'm doing it for children, then am I giving them free tickets so that their parents are tempted to come in? Understanding that, or understanding the growth, or what I want from my podcast would help me build my community. And I think also understanding my uniqueness, or what it is my value is, what it is you're offering, and being able to put everything behind your offering. So social media, and this is who I am, this is what, if I'm educating, and I build on that. I think if you understand your unique value proposition, then I think that would help you build community also, because you can hold on to that and use that to guide you in every other thing. If it's monetization, what brands are you going to based on this unique thing? It's like, this is who I am, this is why you want me. If it's monetization, this is why, this is the direction. If it's marketing, this is what I want them to see, so that's the direction I'd go in. So I'd say those 3.
Okay, love it. So
important.
I'm gonna recap real quick, because I love the way you put that. So you said be authentic, be clear about what you're doing, and be clear about your goals, and then know what your value proposition is. I love that. I love that. So to me, you are someone who's a community builder for the greater African podcast community, right? How do you go about building community at the company that you work for as well?
Right. So at Afripods, we do monthly meets with different podcasters in different spaces. And the idea behind it is because podcasting is very isolating. So what I have realized in the time that I've been in the space, these podcasters in Kenya, for example, who don't know other podcasters in Kenya. So if you create a space for podcasters in Kenya to come together, and you do that in Zimbabwe, and you do that in Zambia, and you do that in Ghana, and you do that in Egypt, what ends up happening is you've created mini communities that you can now, when you need to get them all together, you have a space to start with. So that's why we're doing like the Afripods meets, to try and get the ecosystems in the smaller spaces growing and at a nuclear level, so that then when we need them to come together, that's what, like, those are the little nucleuses coming together like cells Don't be bringing science into the conversation. Let's go.
Let's go.
But that's, I think, what is important about the Afripods meets. Also, additionally, as part of community, it's realizing that one of the biggest asks or things we don't have in the African podcasting space is education. So we've gone into spaces where, like last year, we had a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting with APVA where we talked about discoverability, you know. So you open it up to more of the continent. It's not just like nuclear. You're opening it up to everyone to learn something about podcasting, because in that sense, then you're all able to learn and educate and grow the ecosystem in that way. We have spaces as well and things like that. We had one the other day talking about like the future of podcasting. What does that look like?
Right.
And being able to bring in people from different parts of the continent to participate in that conversation. People who've done different things, like Rodney is doing like live silent podcasts, like things in Nigeria. It's just like, oh my God, I never thought about having like
Explain
a
that a little bit
silent
more
disco.
for us.
So he had like silent listening party for his podcast. And it's just like, in music, it makes sense. It's like, I understand going to a silent listening party for a musician. I'd never thought about it in podcasting. And now you're seeing someone in Nigeria do that. It's just like, oh, if I can put this on a platform, then maybe this is something we can like replicate, you know?
Right.
Or if you're seeing in Zambia, Chulu of African Woman just did like a tour. And it's just like, oh my God, we're doing podcast tours. So what is it about that, you know? But being able to create spaces where I can have a conversation now with Chulu, for example, be like, what was the process like? And then that education or what have you is helps another podcaster is what now we're trying to do, or I'm trying to do with Afripods and community. So it's a lot of education and creating spaces for podcasters to just hang out. Because I feel like every time they hang out, they're like, oh wait, I saw you on, you know, they reach out to each other on Instagram, like, I saw you on the Zoom call, I saw this name, what did you say your podcast is again? And you slowly in those small spaces get new connections happening, collaborations and things like that, which ends up growing the industry and the community as well.
Love it, love it. Okay. What's your favorite part about working in the podcast industry and building community for African podcasters?
My favorite thing is that it's unpredictable. I don't know what tomorrow will look like. I don't know what the industry will look like. It's growing. I mean, it can only get bigger. It can only get better. But I don't know what that looks like. It feels like I'm a trained journalist. I'm a professional journalist. Oh, I'm a journalist by profession.
Let us know.
Wow. But
Go.
It feels like if you're in that space, you already know, if I come in as this, an intern, this is my growth trajectory, this is what is possible, this is what the industry looks like, it's already drawn out, it's a map. I feel like you can't do that with stories, and then you can't do that with podcasting yet, because it's still a very young industry.
Yeah.
And so the idea behind these two things that are almost limitless at the moment, being together and creating a space with that, I mean, it feels like, I don't know, it's like you're in a spiral of just colors and you don't know what's happening. It's just like a happy place. So I'm really excited for what it is or what it could be, the growth of it, seeing how many podcasts come in, how vernacular takes on podcasting, what stories we end up getting, like how many Netflix movies or whatever will come up from African podcasts, you know? Are we going to build our own Disney dreams? Right. I was having a conversation also with like Chilulemba and Kojo from South Africa, and the conversation is, how do we build a wall, basically, I wouldn't call it a wall, a community of podcasting that determines how podcasters will be treated in Africa by anyone coming in now, you know? So that it's like, if anyone comes in, it doesn't matter what part of the wall you hit, we all have the same messaging, we all have, if it's our creators are going to be paid, this is how much our creators are going to be paid. And this is the minimum. And it doesn't matter who you talk to, that's the conversation across the board. I feel like podcasting has the ability to be the thing that unites us, because we're not uniting on an idea or something like that, we're uniting on storytelling, which is the one thing that is absolutely uniquely African. So it's the one thing that, as an African, doesn't matter which part of the continent you're on, storytelling is your thing. So if we can unite on that front and determine how we will be treated on our stories and how you will approach us on that level, from everything, marketing, monetization, how you tell them. Because now if you come in as a producer, you're not going to be able to like water down the story. It's like, no, this is how it's told. This is the accent, you will get it right.
And this is the person's
This
name.
is the person's name,
right.
and you will get it right.
Right.
You will pronounce it like exactly the right way. If it's a West African story, we don't have West African accent on it. You know, like that kind of authority. Yeah, and authority from the side of the creative, where you can be like, no, if you're not going to do it this way, I don't want to. I feel like there's that potential in podcasting, which is why I'm excited about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I love that. You got me excited right now. Create Your Life family. I hope y'all excited too, because I'm fired up over here. So, Gathoni, I want to switch modes a little bit. Like,
Sure.
What role has mentorship played for you in your success overall and as a community builder?
Interesting. Mentorship. I feel like
Mentorship, friendtorship. I mean, you
I
know,
was
we all
like
learning and
mentorship.
growing.
I feel like I was just about to say. I feel like it's more friendtorship.
Yep.
I like the word.
Shout out to Sean Blanchard for that word. Sean Blanchard is the one who I first heard say that.
So I feel like it's that, because in the industry with how young it is, I don't know that we are yet at a level of mentorship. There's no one you can look up to. I feel like us guys in the industry now will end up being the mentors, which is a very scary concept. But I feel like it's a lot of, you have experience, you've done your 1,000 episodes now, and it's, if I have a question on something, I can come to you on that level. But then when it comes to like maybe an experience in Africa, I might know more about it. So then it's an exchange. It's not necessarily a
hierarchy.
It's not a hierarchy. I feel like we're all on the same level, but in different spaces.
Yep.
And then we're going to be the mentors for the people who are coming after us. So if the next person who wants to be the production person and CCO and strategy guy in podcasting, then you're the person they look to. If it's who's the person who builds community, how do I do that, then it's they'll come to me.
Right.
If it's how do you run the company, and you know what I mean, it's then the Molly Jensens, if you want to talk about running the conferences in Africa, it's the Kim Foxes, the Melissas, and the Josephines.
Right.
Like, I feel like this is where it is. This is the people, if you're building networks, then now it's Donald and Cyril in Ghana who will be the people who talk about it. It's Dana Seda you'd go to, you know.
Right.
And Gavin, exactly. Those are the people who you'd go to, because they're doing the thing now and they're figuring it out.
Right.
Because the industry is still young. So we are figuring it out, making the mistakes, and then being like, okay, this is the path. Which is, it's scary being the ones who are creating the path.
You gotta lay out the
you
blueprint.
Know?
You know what I mean?
But
You gotta lay out the
it's
blueprint.
also very exciting being in that space, because there's responsibility that I feel in the stories that will come based on how you have built the thing. Because if you build it wrong, then that means the stories get affected, but you will know you're the one who built it wrong. You know what I mean?
I think the beautiful part about that is that us being collaborative, we're also open to other people's feedback. So there's a chance to course correct and be open to being wrong and being able to pivot in order to do things that are in the best interest of the greater African podcasting community. That's one thing that I really value about the creators that we've had the opportunity to work with, that I've been able to talk to. Like, you know, when you talk to the guys from The Mics Are Open, Calvin, G Money, you know, they're always like, well, you know, we didn't take this particular deal because we knew what precedent it would set for the other creators. And, you know, you talk to your Adele and Yonkos and people like that. So understanding that, I think, is good. And then, you know, there's also opportunity to have conversations with them where you're like, hey, you know what do you think about this? How can we make this better for the greater, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's
and
important.
Also spaces like Baraza that are taking, where they teach you like education on taxes and you know, things like that, where it's, you also have to think about your creativity outside of just being creative. When the business comes in, when the money comes in, how do I negotiate, for example, with Rand on getting money and things like that. So I think it's important, the role we're playing, and I think it is not yet mentorship. I think it will mentor the next group of people coming in. But I feel like also with how quickly the industry is growing, that will happen a lot faster than the 4 years we've had. Like I've had 4 years to be like, okay, is it right? Is it wrong?
Right.
What is this? Do we figure it out? How do we figure it out? There's a lot of conversations we're having now. It's like, what does the tech look like? How is this important? How do we help them monetize? It's now in a few years or even a year, it's going to be like, okay, we're monetizing. What else? What's the next thing? How do we grow the industry? Because it needs to grow beyond this thing. Yeah.
Love that. All right. Now I want to ask you questions about you.
Okay.
Other than consistency, what have been like, just give us like 2 keys to your personal growth, right? Because I've personally got the opportunity to witness you evolve.
Oh,
So
stop. Oh my God.
So like what are a couple of things that have helped you to grow?
I think being surrounded by the right people.
Okay.
I think being able to be in spaces in the workplace, being able to be in spaces where the people who I work with have allowed me the space to bring in myself and figure out what community looks like on my terms. I think it's important to have leaders who lead and don't control. I don't use the word control, but like they allow you the space to figure it out. Molly always says, fail fast, do the thing, fail, and we move on. It's being allowed to make mistakes and knowing you're allowed to make mistakes. That makes it less scary to be able to do those things. So having a good workplace has helped. My sisters are everything. So of course having sisters who, if I've had a bad day or whatever, I can call and be like, why is this happening? I don't like life. My sisters are very smart, very level-headed. I have really good friends also in the creative industry. I have a lot of friends who are like podcasting and things like that. It's also helped to be able to call those people the Dana Sedas and the Melissas and Josephines, who I keep saying their names, but they're people who I genuinely have known probably, those people who you don't remember when you met them, but they've just been in your life forever. Right. And it just happens that we are all in the same space now, doing the same thing. Being able to call someone like Doris Onyango and just be like, hi Doris, I don't know how this is, what's happening, how's this happening? Being able to be surrounded by great people who will call you out if you're doing something wrong, or have your back if you need like support for it, I think has really helped me grow, because I haven't had to think through a lot. I feel like I have the right people around me. So that's helped me. Also, I think reading and things like that, understanding myself. I think I've gone on a journey of like self-discovery, which has helped, therapy and books and things like that have also helped me grow in understanding who I am in that sense. Yeah.
Love it. So you sound like you in your zone, right? Like you did your thing with the videography, the photography, and other things in journalism. So I want to know, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be trying to get into like the film industry.
Okay.
I'd probably still be doing photography. I'd probably be playing around with content creation. It would still be something in the creative industry. I just need my brain to work. I did the 9-to-5 thing and it didn't work for me for a really long time. Where it just feels like when you're in a space where it's like I'm writing data or I'm putting in this information and I'm doing that kind of space doesn't work for me. So I'd find a way to make a creative space work. Probably production, something. Gotcha. Directing, or I'd hold up a mic. Listen, I'll just do whatever it takes to in those spaces.
I love that. So creating to the core. Speaking to my heart. I gotta ask you this about your vantage point. With podcasting growing at such a quick pace, what do you think the future of podcasting looks like in Kenya and the continent overall?
Oh, that sounds like that's a scary thought. I don't know how.
Lean into it.
What does it look like?
Yeah. What do you feel like? Where do you think we're headed?
I feel like it looks like creators getting money for what they're doing. Creative economy, orange economy, as a lot of people call it, is really growing really fast, and I think there's a lot of potential for it to grow even more, because like now we're seeing podcasting entering universities and things like that. A lot of universities in Kenya are starting to put it like in their journalism classes. So that means the younger generations are going to be learning about podcasting a lot earlier, which means we'll have a lot more content, which means we'll have a lot more competition as well. But that also means that the industry can only get better, right? Which means there'll be more access, there'll be more transformation, because now if more people come to the space, we'll figure out if equipment is hard to bring in, for example, maybe someone will come up with a mic that can fit over your thumb. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Right.
Sounds
Innovation.
crazy. Yeah, there'll be a lot of innovation. So I think that's what's exciting about it. I hope we don't get like in each other's necks, because I was having a conversation with someone, and they said the second commercialization comes in, most of the time people start fighting about the big money. So I hope that doesn't happen. I think a lot of innovation. I'm excited to see what innovation comes about from it, especially as it goes younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Loving it. All right, Gathoni, we have finished the general Q&A aspect of your interview.
Okay.
And
but.
so now, but this next aspect of the interview is actually rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You have to answer in like 30 seconds or less.
Okay.
And
You have to be honest.
Oh yeah, you definitely gotta be honest. And so you're about to enter the dolphin tank. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Are you ready?
Call me Flipper.
Oh. Okay. All right, Flipper. Okay, number one. What was the last song that you listened to on your playlist?
Oh my goodness, it's called Favorite Song, something like that. It's by Khalid, and oh my goodness, I can't remember, but it's such a jam.
Okay.
Such a jam.
Okay. What are your goal setting methods? How do you make sure that you're growing each year?
I journal a lot, so there's being able to look back like a few months ago. It's even how you write, how you think about yourself, how you observe certain like situations and things like that. So I think journaling would be the way as my goal setting target thing, like what I look at to see what difference.
Yeah, you mentioned your growth through your journaling.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. What was holding you back from creating your best life?
Myself.
Okay. How?
Imposter syndrome.
Okay.
One of my best friends. I don't want it to be, but a lot of times I get in my head and then I can't get out. So that's probably my greatest battle. One day I'll win it, hopefully, but until then,
you just keep fighting the fight.
Yeah, it's just like I enter the hole and then one day I climb out and I'm like, I can do it, and then there's a new hole.
What do you do in order to get out the hole?
A lot of self-talk has become my thing. I call myself to a meeting.
I love that. Okay.
I call myself to a meeting and I'm like, okay. My therapist is always like, does it make sense? Is there actually a fear? Is there like a tangible thing? And most of the time there's no tangible reason. And so it's just like, okay, there's no reason you're afraid, so just do it. And also, I feel like a lot of times we've been taught mistakes are bad. So it's reminding myself it's okay to make a mistake, because the thing I've learned now is to look back on the one thing I thought was such a giant mistake a long time ago. And then right now I think about it and I'm just like, I was pissed about, like that really had me in a state, but it's not that big a deal now, you know? Think about like, for example, a breakup. That time it's like, oh my God, I don't. And then now you're like, what was his name again? You know what I mean?
Wow.
No.
Forgettable.
Or like you know, you had the number crammed and now it's just like, I don't remember the number, but at that point in time it was like your whole world and this. So I've started looking at things that way. So it's just like in this moment it seems like the giant, but in 2 weeks when you look back on it, it won't be that big. So think 2 weeks ahead and come back, and then it's small now, and then you can continue.
Got you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm actually going to go back and listen to that answer, but you dropped a couple gems in there. Top tech that you are using to make your life run smoothly.
Wow. Do I use tech?
You using that phone? I'll be seeing you use that phone.
I use the phone, but I'm always just doing social media things. I'm just like,
What's making your social media life easy?
What is making it easier? I don't actually know what makes Canva. Let me use Canva. Canva is my friend, okay? Listen to me. If you don't know what Canva is, I hear all of the people, graphic designers, are just like, ugh. I'm sorry, guys. Canva is my thing.
Love it. Favorite quote or motto that you live by?
It's never too late to be exactly what you were meant to be, I think is what it is. It's by George Eliot, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's never too late to be exactly what you're meant to be. It's like, basically, even when it feels like it's over, it's not.
Love that.
Yeah.
Favorite and most impactful book you read?
Big Leap by Gary, I can't remember his name, but The Big Leap.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 jewels you would tell someone looking to create their best life.
Know yourself, love yourself, surround yourself with people who know and love you.
Dang, that was a bar. Lord, that was a bar. Woo! Okay, what's next for you?
Living my best life.
Living my best life.
Yeah, letting people know I'm a princess and not just playing. Growth. I hope to have growth in the space as a creative, as a community leader, seeing African stories be told. For me, it's just, I want to create a space that makes Africans understand their worth, know that they're worthy, and take up that space. I really want them. I want to see Africans take up the space that is ours. So what's next for me is creating the space, however small, that makes even
or however big,
that makes Africans understand their worth at an insular level, so that we can be who we have always been meant to be.
Love that.
Yes.
Okay, and what's the best way for us to keep in contact with you?
You can reach me on 07. I'm on LinkedIn at Gathoni Ngumba. You can reach out to me on email. What's my email?
Or maybe like social? I don't know.
Oh, my social media is I never give social media. My social media, I have social media called Podcasting in Africa. I just created a platform to help educate podcasters. So Podcasting in Africa everywhere.
Okay, cool. Love it. All right, so congratulations, you have survived the dolphin tank.
Thank you! Oh wait, should I have said, okay, Kiasi, that's my podcast. Maybe that's where they should find me. Anyway.
Definitely. Tell us a little bit about OK Kiasi. What does that even mean for those that don't speak Kiswahili?
Okay, Kiasi. So Kiasi is a little bit. So it basically means we're kind of okay. It's a podcast me and my sisters have, just talking about family from the perspective of like a blended family, sisterhood, and life from the perspective of a blended family. So that's what it's about. It's fun. There's tears, there's laughter, there's a lot of everything and nothing at the same time. It's really fun. It's a fun time. Okay.
Now, we definitely got to check you out on there, and it's available on all streaming platforms,
It's
especially
available
Afripods, right?
on Afripods for sure. If you just go and write OKAYKIASI, you'll find it right there.
Love it.
Picture it, 3 pretty girls.
Hey,
That's us.
watch out now.
Gang.
All right, so you survived the dolphin tank, and now Create Your Life Family. This is where I'm gonna get nervous. So we've reached a part of the interview called the turnaround, and in the turnaround, Gathoni, you get to ask me any 3 questions that you want, completely unscripted, and I have to answer.
Oh my God! This is so exciting!
So dramatic. So
any 3 questions?
Any 3 questions. So go ahead, lay it on me.
What's the greatest lesson you have learned living in Nairobi? Like, what's your biggest takeaway?
Probably patience.
No, please.
I would say I didn't necessarily have I didn't have a lot of patience before, but I would say patience and understanding have been like 2 lessons that have continued to show up for me and that I continue to lean into. So definitely a lot more patient, definitely more understanding of others' perspectives, and then also, those 2 things I would definitely say.
Okay. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
That's funny. If I was an animal, what animal would I be?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm like stumped because I'm just like,
You have to pick one.
I remember one of my friends used to be like I have the behavior of a meerkat because I'm just everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like they.
Timon, is that you?
Right, because they be chilling and then they be like over here and then they be over there. So like they doing a lot of stuff. So I need to probably research meerkats a little bit more in order to speak to that responsibly. But I'm gonna have to.
Was that your final answer?
I don't know. I don't think I have a final answer because I like koalas because they be chilling. But koalas are actually interesting animals, and but I did play with a koala in Monopoly before, and so me and my cousins like when I go home to Cali, like it's a serious thing when we play Monopoly, and I had the world version, and they had this koala, so it was like koala Kev, and so that was like a thing for a second. So I don't know. I don't got no
the rules where you have to answer the question.
I did answer it, but I just didn't come up with a finite
Okay,
finished
cool.
product of the answer.
Let me think of a third
You got
question.
one more. Better make it good.
If there was one thing
Uh-huh.
you could tell people about you that they feel like they misunderstand the most, what would you say?
One thing that people probably misunderstand about me
Yeah, that you normally wouldn't correct them on, but if you could, what would you say?
that I normally don't correct them on. Wow, that's interesting. You know what I've learned
Mm-hmm.
is that a lot of the times people project and they don't necessarily get to know who it is that they may be making a comment about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think a lot of times people actually don't even understand the words in which they're using, like the adjectives. They're just saying them because they're hot takes off of like social media and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I would say is that, you know, sometimes I can be very direct, but I think it's important if you know me, then you also understand that it's never anything, like I'm never malicious. You know what I mean? Like it might come out a way and you'd be like, but you know what I mean? Like it's not my intention to ever offend anybody. You know what I mean? So I think that's an interesting thing. It's something that I've, you know, over the years have learned to navigate. But I've also allowed myself to give people space in understanding that people project, and sometimes what they have going on has nothing to do with you. And so you need to be okay with that, and like you said, you know, love yourself, know yourself, and then allow them to grow out of that, because they might come back. You know, number one, most people have an issue admitting that they're wrong or seeing themselves, but in the event that they do, there should be some grace there for them to be like, hey, you know what, my bad, I thought you was this, or I thought that mean this, and it didn't, right? So I think that's my way of navigating it, and I think watching some people that I like look up to navigate those waters, and seeing how all of these people had these things to say about them, but they stayed consistent in being who they are, and their character and stuff like that showed through. But I think in the age of social media, that can be very, very hard as well. So it's an interesting thing to navigate.
So you don't have anything you want to tell us? You don't want to be like, listen, I'm actually a black man.
Yeah, I've been there for a long time.
No way.
I know, right?
Dang, I did not
New
know
news.
that. Wow.
New news. Breaking news. Yeah, man, I think, you know, just that I'm always operating from an optimistic perspective, man, and just, you know, I think, you know what? I always want to see people win. That is like my thing. If I'm like sometimes, you know what I mean, even with us working together, right? Like I'll be like on your back about something. It's never like, oh, I don't think, you know what I mean, this is possible or this, that, and the other. I'm just so passionate about it because I can see where people can go to other levels, and that's my that's my thing. Like I love seeing people win, and so I think again, you know, just understanding I'm pretty much always operating with someone else's, just from an authentic place of love, and I just want to see people win, man. Like just win, and then, you know what I mean, later on let's talk about it. You know what I mean, your steps to getting there, just kind of like how we are on the show.
Cool.
You know what I mean? So
about that, since you brought up that we work together, no play.
I was like nervous, like
you were like, oh no, not here, not on the podcast.
Not on the pod. Okay. Well, Gathoni, I want to say thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It has been a pleasure.
It's been really fun.
Yeah. So, you know, it's good to sit across from you. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do this again.
Let's go.
And again and again.
Call my people.
Yeah.
We'll make the time.
Right. I appreciate you. Gang.
Gang.
All right, cool. All right, so Create Your Life family, I want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast, and share with everyone you know. Please email all questions, suggestions, and compliments to info@cylseries.com. And the Create Your Life series is executive produced by Kevin Y. Brown and produced by the Podcast Laundry production company. And this episode has been recorded at Kofisi Studios in Nairobi, Kenya. So until next time, create your life and feed your ambition.